doesn't, then we'll do it again in the next class, but try real hard because I don't want to do it again. Okay. All right, so let's clear this up. Parts of the outline. Nothing gets left out. Do all of these parts. Part 1, teacher stuff. Which speech this is. Remember I told you, and you saw it on the sample that I used, it has the section number. I don't need that. Instead, you can put which speech this is for. Say informative, and that's good enough. Your name. Please use your name, the topic, and then the purpose statement. Be sure it's phrased correctly. It needs to start with, I want my audience to understand. And then you fill it in after that. So the first 6 words I'm giving you. I want my audience to understand. And then you fill it in. Part 2 is the introduction. That's where you tell them what you're going to tell them. That's what introduces the topic to the audience. There are 2 parts of that. We're going to go over this in just a second. The attention getter and the orientation phase. The orientation phase also has 4 parts of it. So the introduction is kind of a big thing. But it's not as big as the body. The body of the speech is where you tell them, tell them, tell them. You use 2 to 5 main points. So depending on how many main points you have is how long your body is. You have to have at least 2, no more than 5. The conclusion, part 4, tell them what you told them. You have a summary and a concluding device. Now, note this, the Roman numerals used here will depend on how many main points you ended up with. So let's back up, let me show you. What did I do? There. Roman numeral 1 is your attention getter. Roman numeral 2 is your orientation phase. A, B, C, D is credibility, adaptation, point, and preview, which I will discuss momentarily. Notice that point number 1 is Roman numeral 3. That is because we used Roman numeral 1 and 2 here. So point number 1 is going to be indicated by Roman numeral 3. Just get that through your head. You don't have to understand it or like it. It can be confusing, so just accept it. Okay, yep, that's how it is. And then if you have only 2 main points, you'll have Roman numeral 1 indicated by, point number 1 indicated by Roman numeral 3, and then point number 2 indicated by Roman numeral 4, and then this would change, and it would be Roman numeral 5 and Roman numeral 6, but it just depends on how many main points you have as to how this ends up. So be sure you understand your Roman numerals. Go look those up if you don't. Part 5 is the bibliography, meaning more teacher stuff. This part is not said out loud either. That's where you just list your works cited. This actually looks pretty bad. The spaces are wrong when it converted to Canvas. Anyway, just number them, put them on there. 3 sources minimum, more is fine. You can have as many as you want, but 3 is the minimum. Don't put yourself in the bibliography. It is assumed that if you are giving the speech, you are a source. All right, you don't have to list yourself. All right, list everything that's not you, where you found other information that you didn't already know. All right, put that in that list. And that's it for the parts of the outline. Let's see here, outlining. Oh yeah, this one is really, really thick with information. But it goes through each part and why and how and all the things. So if you get some time just to sit down, yeah, it's a lot. Don't go crazy. But this just tells you each thing I'm looking for and why it's there, what to do with it. See, all this little writing and arrows going to things. So look back over that after I've given this lecture. That will be helpful. There's a lot of information going on there. Can you hear me well enough? You think the video is picking up my voice? It did last time I tried it. They were a little closer, but it was fine. and ending your speech. Let's settle in on this for a minute. We're going to start with the introduction. You gotta have a good, well-planned, thought-out, decided ahead of time what is going to be your introduction. What are the first words that you're gonna say? How are you going to begin your speech? Because beginning it well is going to help you do all the rest of it well. If you can get it off on the right foot, it will create a favorable first impression with your audience, and it'll give you confidence to keep going and keep doing it right and doing a good job. So get your information, your introduction down pat. Get it just right so that it will really help you do well for the rest of the speech. The introduction has two parts: the attention-getting device and the orientation phase. The attention-getting device gets Roman numeral 1, and the orientation phase will get Roman numeral 2. The attention getter does just what it says, or it's supposed to, and that is to get the audience's attention and interest with a planned opening statement. You have to plan ahead what you're going to say for your opening statement. You have to put that, what you plan to say for your opening statement, as the attention-getting device on your outline. Write it out so I see what your plan is. Just like you'll see on Madison Hagler's sample, that's the way I want it. There's different things you can do to get the audience's attention. You have lots of choices. You can arouse the curiosity of the audience. Say something mysterious, or something, that we're not real sure of that you're going to explain later that gets us curious. You can ask us a question that we have to answer because that gets the audience involved. You can begin with a quotation. You can tell a story. You can startle the audience, and I have had people do this, but let's talk about it first, okay? Don't just come in here with a plan to startle the audience that you haven't run by me, okay? Because sometimes it can be too much. You don't want to scare the pants off your audience, right? You just want to get their attention, not frighten them to death. I had a girl once who was going to give her speech on American Sign Language, and so she came up and she was silent. And she rapped on this until everybody was looking at her, and then she started signing, and did all the things that I don't know how to do, but that's what she did. And that got her attention because she wasn't talking, she was knocking. And we looked, and she did a thing, with her hands and did the signs, and it was very interesting. And then she started speaking and explained it all to us. I also had a guy once who came in here and thought not in here, it was in the library, on the top floor, all right, who decided it would be a good idea to come in and do a big pratfall. So he came in and did a big trip, and he fell, and he spewed his papers everywhere, and he hit the floor, bam! And everybody who worked in the building came running from downstairs. Oh my God, what happened? Do we need to call an ambulance? Is he okay? He jumped up. It was like, ha-ha, acting, genius. And his speech was on how to do a pratfall, and I was just like, I could strangle you right now. I was so scared he had hurt himself. It looked so real. Don't do that, okay? Don't scare your audience. Don't make your teacher think she's going to have to call an ambulance for you, okay? Unless she really needs to. Don't scare us. Another girl was going to give a speech on bipolar disorder, dissociative personality disorder, and she fell to the ground, and I thought she broke her legs because she hit the ground so hard and was screaming at the top of her lungs, demonstrating what it's like to have a psychotic break, which is a serious thing, but really shouldn't have been demonstrated in a humongous crowd of people with people out in the hall, because once again, Here comes people running and knocking on my door. Do we need to call somebody? Is she okay? Is she having a nervous breakdown? You know, what's going on? And I'm like, no, she's just introducing her speech in a really bad way, you know. So you can startle the audience, but it has to be with an attention getter that relates to the topic, okay? And is not scary, just a little bit startling. Know the difference. Don't scare your audience to death. And be sure it goes with your topic and you're not just screaming fire, you know, something like that. The orientation phase. That has 4 parts of it, and you can choose which order you want them to go in. Any order is fine, all right? Whatever works best for your speech. As long as they're all there, and they need to flow from one thing to the other thing. It needs to be conversational. It needs to feel like it's leading you, you know, from the introduction, from the attention getter to the first main point. You're explaining some things. You're orienting us to the topic itself. Credibility is part of the orientation phase. That is the audience's perception of whether you, the speaker, are qualified to speak on the topic. How do we know that you're qualified to speak on the topic? How can we trust you? Why should we trust you to share information about the topic? Because you tell us why. Don't leave it up to the audience to guess. Tell us why you know what you know. Tell us how you know what you know. Tell us why you chose the topic you chose. What's your connection to it? For example, several years ago, all the women on campus, not like faculty and staff, not students, but all the faculty and staff who were women, were supposed to go to a workshop on how to dress professionally. Right? We needed to learn how to dress professionally. I don't know if it really took with me, but you know, I'm trying. But anyway, and there was a woman who was another faculty member who was chosen to give the speech or the workshop on how to dress. And she explained to us why they chose her. Because otherwise we're going to be sitting there going, how come she gets to tell us what to do? Right? I mean, she's a colleague. She's not my boss. Why is she telling me what I should wear? Because she used to work in fashion merchandising. She was a buyer for Dillard's. She knew fashion. She understood it. She had a background in it before she became an academic. You have to tell the audience what your connection is to the topic. And that happens in credibility, because we're if you leave it up to us to guess, we won't. So you have to tell us how you know, what you know, why you chose that topic. The point is where you make the purpose statement clear, because remember, you don't read that off. That's at the top in teacher stuff. That's in part number 1, remember? So since you're not reading that to us, how do we know what the purpose is? You tell us right here in the point. That's the part where you introduce the topic and explain your purpose for the speech. What do you want for us because of this speech? Tell us in the point. Adaptation is where you establish how the topic relates to the audience and how you as the speaker have the best interests of the audience in mind and what you think the topic will do for us and why it's a good idea for us to listen and what might we take away from this speech and why you chose the topic for us. Because it's for the audience. Every speech is for the audience. So tell us why you picked that topic for us and how it connects to us. Credibility connected to you. Adaptation connected to us. And then the preview simply lays out the highlights or the main points of what's coming up next. Here's what we're going to talk about. Here are the main points to be listening for. All right, so that's all of the introduction. Some tips for preparing the introduction: be concise. Don't just ramble on and on and on in the introduction. Get the job done and keep it moving. Don't spend all your time in the introduction. You have the body of the speech to explain things. All right, so get there to deal with the point. The point isn't dealt with much in the introduction, just to introduce it, not to explain it. So be concise. Look for possible introductory materials as you do your research. You may come across a really good story or quote. Be creative. I love creativity. I love for people to do something interesting and different. But I don't want you falling on the floor, all right? I don't want you falling to your knees and screaming. I don't mean that, all right? If you have an idea that you're not sure about, ask me and I'll tell you if it's a good one or not. Finalize the exact wording of your introduction. This is after you've prepared the body of the speech. That you don't have to. How am I going to know anyway, right? It's all going to be on the outline one way or another. I'm not going to know what you did first. But in the past, it used to be stressed that you do the body first and then go back and get the introduction. But as long as you have everything, I don't care when and how you did it. Work out the content and delivery of your introduction in detail. That means practice. Practice, 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 keep on practicing. That's the only way you're going to get it down pat is to practice. Okay, I'm going to stop with that. You can stop the video.